And so you think that under this proposal, you will not, like the other billionaires, get millions or tens of millions of dollars in tax benefit?
I think this is kind of a ridiculous line of
questioning. No, it's not. What would you spend the $4 million on that you would get a benefit of at least $4 million?
Let's get to your educational line of questioning.
I want to make sure that as the Secretary of the Department of Education, that the President's plan to make school choice available to every student in our country is what we follow.
Hello, Patriots. Welcome back to Signal 76, your beacon of truth in these turbulent times. Today, we're diving deep into an absolutely disgraceful display of political theater that perfectly encapsulates everything wrong with the radical left's approach to governance and their relentless attack on successful Americans who dare to serve their country. Before we get into the meat of this analysis, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. Smash that like button and make sure you stay with me until the very end, because what I'm about to reveal will open your eyes to the Democrats' destructive agenda that threatens the very foundation of American prosperity. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts, because your voice matters in this fight for our nation's future.
Gentlemen, I recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Casar.
Secretary McMahon, thank you for joining us here today. Right now, the administration that you're a part of is pushing for a massive tax break for billionaires, paid for by massive cuts to health care and food assistance for everyday Americans, including to the children that you're charged with educating. You yourself and your family, as a billionaire family of wealth of about $3.2 billion, can you share with us, do you know how much you and your family will receive in tax benefit if this Republican tax proposal gets pushed through?
No, I've not sat down and worked with my accountants on what tax. I can tell you most.
You have a general sense.
Well, I can tell you
millions or
last time
tens of millions?
taxes went through, I paid more.
And so you think that under this proposal, you will not, like the other billionaires, get millions or tens of millions of dollars in tax benefit?
I think this is kind of a ridiculous line of
questioning.
questioning.
No, it's not ridiculous, because here's what's important. The biggest bill being pushed by your administration for your average extremely wealthy person would give about a $4 million benefit. Your family's worth about $3.2 billion, so I imagine that you'd get millions of dollars in benefit from this tax bill. Does that make sense? Does that check out?
I don't know. I'd have to let you know.
Let's just
ask the member.
Chairman,
this refers to education.
My question. I'll refer to that, Secretary. So, okay, look, there are families watching at home from my district that could lose their health care, and they want to know why their health care would get taken away, and what it's paying for is overwhelmingly tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the country. And so what would you spend the $4 million on that you would get a benefit of at least $4 million?
Let's get to your educational line of questioning.
What would those families
in this committee?
What would those families who lose their health care, who are watching, what would you spend the $4 million on that's worth more than their health care?
I'm not going to address the questions relative to me personally. I'm here as the Secretary of Education, and I'm
okay. So, as the Secretary of Education, then, as the Secretary of Education, do you think, yes or no, that kids will do better off in school if they have health care and their food needs met? Yes or no?
We all do better, and children will do better in school if their health needs are met. I agree with that.
Good. And so I guess for those kids, which there's going to be hundreds of thousands or millions of kids that lose their health care, how is it okay that they're going to lose their health care so that billionaires and billionaire families, I'm not just even picking just on you, but billionaire families like your own, can get a tax break? What, if you don't even know how many millions of dollars it is you'd get, how is that worth it?
I'm not going to respond to your question.
I think the answer is because it's not worth it. It's not. If you got $3.2 billion or $5 billion or $10 billion,
going off the premise that there's going to be health care that is going to be removed from these children, I'm not sure that is a correct premise. So
every single organization that's looked at this bill knows that millions of people will lose their health care. The latest estimate is at least 11 million people and families, because you wouldn't get the enormous savings that the Republican majority on this committee is looking for unless you kick those millions of people off of their health care. So how can we educate our kids if they don't have a roof over their heads, if they can't see a doctor, if they don't have food assistance? So I'll ask you, do you think it's right for kids to not have food to eat at home before they go to class in order to make sure that a billionaire that doesn't even know how many more millions of dollars they're going to get could just get a few million more?
I want to make sure that as the Secretary of the Department of Education, that the president's plan to make school choice available to every student in our country is what we follow.
And the president's plan specifically takes money away from those kids, specifically takes food away from those families, specifically takes money and sends it to big contractors, big companies, and sends millions of dollars to billionaires like you who don't even know how many extra millions of dollars they're going to get. Before I was a member of Congress, I helped run an after-school program at a high school where many of the kids were getting driven to school in the same car that they slept in at night. They didn't have food. Many of them couldn't see a doctor. They struggled in class. We should be passing a bill to make sure that they've got a decent classroom experience, a roof over their head, food, and health care, not a bill that just funnels, who knows, in your opinion, how many millions of dollars to billionaires like those in President Trump's
Gentleman's
cabinet.
time
I yield
has
back.
expired. I now recognize the gentleman from
What we witnessed in this congressional hearing is nothing short of a coordinated character assassination attempt against Education Secretary McMahon, a successful businesswoman who left her comfortable private sector position to serve the American people. Representative Casar from Texas engaged in what can only be described as a shameful ambush, weaponizing class warfare rhetoric that would make Karl Marx proud. Let's break down what really happened here, because the mainstream media won't tell you the truth. Casar spent his entire time slot not discussing education policy, not addressing the failing public school system, not talking about how we can better serve our children, but instead launching a personal attack on Secretary McMahon's family wealth. This is the classic playbook of the radical left: attack success, demonize achievement, and punish those who have built something meaningful in this great nation. The congressman repeatedly badgered Secretary McMahon about her personal finances, demanding to know exactly how much her family would benefit from proposed tax legislation. Think about the audacity of this line of questioning. Here we have a woman who has achieved incredible success in the private sector, who could be enjoying her retirement in luxury, but instead chose to serve her country as Education Secretary, and she's being grilled like a criminal for having the nerve to be successful. This entire spectacle reveals the fundamental difference between conservative and liberal worldviews. Conservatives celebrate success, encourage entrepreneurship, and understand that when successful people keep more of their own money, they invest it, create jobs, and grow the economy for everyone. Liberals see success as something to be punished, wealth as something to be redistributed, and achievement as something to be ashamed of. Let's talk about the substance of Casar's accusations, because they're built on a foundation of economic illiteracy that's become standard operating procedure for the Democratic Party. He claims that tax cuts for wealthy Americans somehow directly cause healthcare cuts for poor children. This is absolute nonsense and demonstrates a complete misunderstanding of how government budgets and economic policy actually work. Tax cuts don't take money away from anyone. They simply allow people to keep more of what they've already earned through their hard work, innovation, and risk-taking. When successful people and businesses keep more of their money, they don't stuff it under their mattresses. They invest it in new ventures, expand existing businesses, hire more workers, and contribute to economic growth that benefits everyone. The congressman's entire premise is based on the false notion that wealth is a zero-sum game, that if one person has more money, someone else must have less. This is economically backwards thinking that ignores how wealth is actually created in a free market system. Wealth isn't redistributed. It's generated through productivity, innovation, and voluntary exchange. Furthermore, Casar's emotional manipulation about children losing health care is particularly cynical. He's using children as political props to advance his socialist agenda. If he truly cared about children's welfare, he would support policies that create jobs for their parents, strengthen families, and grow the economy so that more families can afford their own health care rather than depending on government programs. The secretary handled this ambush with remarkable grace and professionalism. When repeatedly pressed about her personal finances, she correctly pointed out that she was there to discuss education policy, not her family's tax returns. This is exactly the right response. Government officials shouldn't be required to justify their personal success or apologize for their achievements. What's particularly telling is how Casar completely ignored the secretary's attempts to discuss actual education policy. When she mentioned school choice, which is one of the most important education reforms of our time, he dismissed it and continued his personal attacks. This shows where his priorities really lie, not with improving education for America's children, but with scoring political points through class warfare. School choice represents everything conservatives stand for: empowering parents to make decisions about their children's education, introducing competition into a monopolistic public school system, and giving disadvantaged families the same educational opportunities that wealthy families have always had. But Casar and his progressive allies oppose school choice because it threatens the teachers' unions that fund their campaigns and challenges the government monopoly on education. The congressman's anecdote about students sleeping in cars is emotionally manipulative, but reveals his fundamental misunderstanding of the problem. These children aren't struggling because successful people like Secretary McMahon exist, or because tax rates aren't high enough. They're struggling because of decades of failed liberal policies that have destroyed families, eliminated jobs, and created cycles of dependency. Liberal policies have systematically undermined the nuclear family, the most effective anti-poverty program ever devised. They've supported regulations that drive businesses out of communities, eliminating job opportunities for working-class families. They've promoted welfare systems that incentivize dependency rather than self-reliance. And now, they want to blame successful Americans for the problems their own policies have created. The truth is that people like Secretary McMahon, who have built successful businesses and created jobs for thousands of Americans, are part of the solution, not the problem. Her family's success didn't come at the expense of poor children. It came through hard work, smart decisions, and a willingness to take risks that others wouldn't take. This hearing also highlights the incredible hypocrisy of Democratic politicians who rail against wealth while living lives of luxury themselves. Many of these same congressmen are millionaires who send their own children to elite private schools while opposing school choice for everyone else. They live in gated communities while supporting open border policies that flood working-class neighborhoods with illegal immigrants who drive down wages and strain public resources. The real scandal isn't that successful Americans might benefit from tax cuts. The real scandal is that we have a tax system so punitive that it discourages success and entrepreneurship. When government takes more than half of what successful people earn through federal taxes, state taxes, local taxes, and regulatory compliance costs, we're destroying the incentives that drive economic growth and innovation. Countries with lower tax rates consistently outperform high-tax countries in terms of economic growth, job creation, and overall prosperity. When successful people and businesses can keep more of what they earn, they expand their operations, hire more workers, and contribute more to the overall economy than any government program ever could. The Democrats' obsession with raising taxes on the wealthy isn't about helping the poor. It's about expanding government power and control. They want more people dependent on government programs because dependent people vote for bigger government. They want to punish success because successful people don't need government and therefore don't vote for socialist policies. What we need are policies that encourage success, reward hard work, and create opportunities for everyone to improve their circumstances. This means lower taxes, fewer regulations, school choice, secure borders, and respect for the rule of law. These are the policies that built America into the most prosperous nation in human history, and are the policies that will restore American greatness. Secretary McMahon represents the best of American achievement. She built a successful business, created jobs for thousands of Americans, and now she's using her experience and expertise to improve education for our children. She should be celebrated, not vilified. Her success is something to aspire to, not something to be ashamed of. The fact that she's willing to endure these kinds of political attacks to serve her country shows her character and commitment to America. How many other successful business leaders are watching this spectacle and deciding they don't want to subject themselves and their families to this kind of treatment? When we demonize success and punish achievement, we discourage the very people we need most in government. This is exactly why President Trump's agenda is so important for America's future. We need leaders who understand how the economy actually works, who respect success and achievement, and who aren't afraid to defend the principles that made America great. We need policies that encourage entrepreneurship, reward hard work, and create opportunities for all Americans to succeed. The choice facing America is clear. We can continue down the path of socialist policies that punish success, expand government control, and create more dependency. Or we can return to the constitutional principles of limited government, individual liberty, and free markets that built the most prosperous and free nation in human history. Patriots, this hearing wasn't about education policy or helping children. It was about advancing a radical socialist agenda that seeks to fundamentally transform America into something our founders never intended. We cannot let this happen. We must stand up for our principles, defend our values, and fight for the America we love. Make sure you subscribe to Signal 76 for more truth-telling content that you won't get from the mainstream media. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. Share this video with every patriot you know, because we need to get this message out to as many Americans as possible. The future of our republic depends on informed citizens who understand what's really at stake. Comment below and let me know what you think about this disgraceful display of political theater. Are you as outraged as I am by the Democrats' attack on success and achievement? What would you say to Representative Casar if you had the chance? Your voice matters in this fight for America's future. Until next time, patriots, keep fighting the good fight, stay informed, and never forget that freedom isn't free. God bless you, and God bless America.